Margaret, I'd like to flag for the Minister or ask for an update on plans to address antisocial behaviour and abuse against drivers and workers on public transport.
Thank you, Deputy. Like you, I absolutely take the safety and security of transport workers and passengers very seriously. It's an unfortunate truth that public transport is not immune to instances of antisocial behaviour. Those who work within a public transport system are among those who are most directly impacted. To address this, the NTA, An Garda Síochána and the operators work closely to promote order and safety on public transport services. To this end, each of the operators have introduced a number of measures in recent years to help combat the issue. Irish Rail, for example, have increased spending on security by more than 70%, from 3.7 million in 2016 to 6.3 million last year. On the bus network, the entire Dublin bus fleet is fully fitted with CCTV cameras and radios for immediate contact to a central control centre. More broadly, An Garda Síochána established a new transport hub in the National Train Control Centre at Euston Station and are conducting more patrols in affected areas, while the NTA have published a public transport passenger security report. Despite these efforts, it remains an ongoing issue for the sector. In 2023, a total of 2,791 incidents of antisocial behaviour were recorded. While these occurred in the context of over 308 million passenger journeys last year, it remains an unacceptable number. SIP2, in its Respect Transport Workers campaign, highlighted some of the issues faced by public transport workers on a day-to-day basis, including issues of vandalism and verbal abuse. I look forward to meeting with representatives of SIP2 to discuss these issues and the findings of a recent survey of members. To conclude, my department and the NTA will continue to engage regularly with operators on this issue to ensure the safety and security of staff on public transport.
Minister, and I welcome that information, and particularly that you will be meeting with SIP2 on this issue. I was lucky enough myself to go to the bus depot in Summerhill to look at the electric buses recently, which is fantastic to see. But one of the issues for conversation amongst us were the need to attract more women, for example, into the service. And one of the big barriers to that, obviously, is to communicate to the public or those who might be seeking employment in the service that it is a safe job for women, and indeed for women in general across public transport, that it is safe to use public transport with their children. And I believe that the perception that public transport might not always be safe is a barrier in terms of gender and in terms of diversity and in terms of those with different abilities, and that it might in fact be a barrier to organisations like Bus Éireann attracting female drivers, and a barrier to their project of getting more Mná into the service.
I was like you. I visited Summerhill bus station recently, and I agree. Real progress being made in the provision of services. But similarly, I got the message: shortage of mechanics as well as drivers is a real issue. So we do have to resolve that, and we can and will. Just to go into the detail of some of the figures so people have an understanding on this antisocial, as I was saying, 2,791 incidents. In Dublin Bus, who transported 145 million passengers last year, there was something like 621 incidents of antisocial behaviour. On Bus Éireann, who transported some 44 million passengers, the figure was 372. In Go-Ahead buses, transported about 16 million passengers, it was 320. On the Luas, which transported 48.2 million passengers, there were 748 incidents. And on Irish Rail, which transported 45.5 million passengers, some 740 incidents of antisocial behaviour. We have to look at each category of public transport. We also, as you, I'm sure, will agree and know, we have to look at what the experience is of the passenger when they arrive at the bus stop or waiting at the bus stop or the railway station. Because the safety issue doesn't just relate to when you're on the vehicle. It's very important we get,
Minister, we're way over time.
Particularly for women, safe environment around the service.
Thanks, Minister. And just to reiterate, part of that is the perception of safety, and that's why, and I wouldn't endeavour to speak for SIP2, but I know that maybe one thing that might be useful would be to have a transport stakeholder forum where unions can work with the department to ensure that across the board, across all of our public transport, there is a perception that you are safe when you use a bus or a Lewis or a local link, that you are protected, that you have nothing to fear, and that you can also take up a job in those industries and you will be safe and protected. I know that, for example, we have effectively a security contingent in Dublin Airport, for example, that works well. It's not the same as the Gardaí, but certainly that they can detain anybody who is guilty of posing a threat to others. And I do believe that what we need in general is a joined-up process and a joined-up strategy as, hopefully, people move more towards public transport into the future.
Minister, to conclude.
I'd agree with you, and I suppose just to give background, the NTA did establish a working group on antisocial behaviour which meets monthly, and it works with the operators and with the and looking at the trends of public transport operators to share best practices. I've mentioned all those various different types of operators, but also my department and key public transport stakeholders also presented to the Department of Justice's Antisocial Behaviour Forum, which took place in June last year. So I agree with you, and I think the SIP2 campaign, which I think is launched on the 20th of February last, their involvement and engagement with this is also critical, as is in Garda Síochána. I know a lot of people have been arguing maybe for institutional change in terms of separate traffic police and so on, or indeed others than the Guard taking on that role. I don't think that's the right approach. I do think it is a matter for Garda Síochána working with the operators. I think the fact that they're now located, as I said, in the main National Train Centre down at Euston Station will increase that level of responsiveness, and I think it does merit ongoing collaboration between the various users and stakeholders.
Thank you.